Can something be simultaneously tragic and haunting, yet beautiful? Yeah, it was actually Woodstock, 1969. Jimi Hendrix's historic and virtuosic performance of the Star-Spangled Banner answered this question with a resounding yes. Once you dig below the surface, you quickly realize that his performance was a reflection of where the nation and the world was at that time. And his intended message was audible in every note and stimulated cry created from his guitar. The soldiers heard the sirens and gunshots and the sounds of war they left behind. Their reality, for the first time, represented in a song meant to brush away those realities with patriotic words and melodic notes. In that same crowd, the flower child heard the feelings of confusion and sadness they felt as people who just wanted love and peace as a way of life. Having to live in the reality of a country at war to them was unnecessary, unwarranted, and seemingly unending. Like it or not, this was the soundtrack of everyone's life. Many don't know that Jimi was another disenfranchised ex-military serviceman, matched with the struggle for equal rights for people of color, especially in deep southern states. It makes sense that he was the one who could tell that song's story with the authenticity needed to touch, move, support, and comfort both the soldier in the field and the citizen at home. Hey guys, my name's Julia, and you're watching The MCs, Music at the Core of Everything. And today's question is, what is the music of war? Or more importantly, who is it really made for? Let's find out. So, first things first, we're going to define what we mean by music of war. There's the music made about war or concerning war, reflecting on or inspired by war, etc., etc., etc. But then there's also the music made specifically for the waging of war itself. Have you ever wondered why every military branch has a band? Like, as a job in the military, you can choose infantry, paratrooper, field medic, or band. Well, there's a reason for that. And actually, I've heard that you can get paid pretty well for being in, like, the U.S. Army or in a U.S. military band. I would have considered it if I could see myself being in the military. Since there's been war, music has been a part of it. Drums were used to give the pace for marching and directions on the field, where the voice was useless due to distance or the clashing of weapons or screams and shouts from hundreds of men engaged in battle. Big brass horns led the cavalry, and the snare drums and flutes helped to quicken the steps of foot soldiers while boosting their morale with the tunes of patriotic songs, keeping the motivation of what they were fighting for close at all times. Admittedly, now the battlefield looks a lot different, and the marches that were used to lead the front lines now get played in the gymnasium of your everyday middle school by an orchestra that, well, let's just say they haven't really gotten the hang of tuning yet. But hey, they're still gonna get a standing ovation and ice cream after the show, because Mom doesn't give a shit if Timmy's F sharp is flat. Because as far as she's concerned, Timmy is the second coming of Mozart. And anyway, they're just kids. Don't be a monster. Just stand and clap. Anyway. I love kids, by the way. Anyway, there's not much question as to who this kind of music is made for. Even though we play it and enjoy it in concert halls today, the music was definitely made for soldiers at war. What we're talking about is that thing Jimi did in '69, the musical reaction to war. During the Vietnam War, music about the war was on every station. Brave artists, inspired by what was going on around them, started to chastise and condemn the war. Not only the Vietnam War, but even the idea of war itself became openly questioned to the backdrop of electric guitars. The relatively new synthesizers and the huge booming drums that seem to somehow keep getting bigger and bigger with every new drummer. One bass drum, then two, 4 toms, 5 toms, 7 toms, and 100 cymbals that dwarf the poor little sweaty shirtless guy behind the monstrosity, just trying to keep up with the volume and speed of the changing instruments and changing world around him. This is the music of war, or better yet, the music that war produces. The bigger drums grew parallel to the size of bigger guns. Jimi's new invention of the distortion on the guitar reflected perfectly the distortion felt by those who lost, and those who were still losing for reasons that seemed equally as distorted. Every answer, every statement, every speech made by every politician was an obvious distortion of the truth. And the music reflected that. Here's where things get a little dicey. You see, protesting and showing solidarity against the war was seen as a responsibility, not an artist's choice. If you were a musician with any kind of decency, you were supposed to wail away at society and your guitar and make the music for the people, man. Well, what is the artist's responsibility? I mean, what Jimi did to the Star-Spangled Banner was amazing in its brutal honesty about what that song actually represented. But the song itself had its own reason for existing. Our national anthem was also written as a guttural, visceral reaction to ongoing war. That song is for all citizens now. Well, the first verse. But it was made for the soldiers taking cover in a foxhole who just needed something to hold on to make it to the next one, and the one after that, and maybe even to finish the mission, and maybe even finish the war. Even though the liberal-minded of the times would tell you the responsibility of the artist was to speak truth to power and be the dynamic conduit for peace, even by way of civil unrest if necessary, they forget that music has always kept positive company with American wars. During the Revolutionary War, Yankee Doodle and many other songs set to reels and dances were sung to keep spirits alive during dark hours. The Battle Hymn of the Republic, Lincoln's favorite song during the Civil War, was countered by Dixie in Confederate states. In 1918, in the middle of World War I, Irving Berlin gave us God Bless America, considered by many to be the unofficial anthem of the United States. Composers such as Mark Blitzstein and Samuel Barber were enlisted to write upbeat songs for the Office of War Information during World War II. Lauren Rebecca Sklaroff, an associate professor of history at the University of South Carolina, said this in her article for The Conversation, an academic online magazine. The Americans that President Richard Nixon dubbed the silent majority, those angered by protesters, constituted a huge swath of the country. They had catapulted Nixon to the presidency and fueled a resurgent conservative political movement. The deep-seated resentment felt by so many Americans against those on college campuses, those who defied military orders, and those who questioned American patriotism cannot be ignored, and they too turned to music that provided solace. Merrill Haggard said that he wrote his 1969 hit song Okie from Muskogee to support U.S. soldiers who were giving up their freedom and lives to make sure others could stay free. What the hell did these kids have to complain about, he wondered. The spokesman's pro-Vietnam ballad, Dawn of Correction, insisted on the need to keep free people from red domination, while the battle hymn of Lieutenant Calley, performed by C Company and Terry Nelson, topped Billboard charts. The popularity of these songs paints another portrait of the war. Politically, the music was much more multifaceted than is often remembered. So, what is the music of war? The music of war depends on the war that inspired it. To the Confederate soldiers, Dixie was the music of war that buoyed the troops and strengthened the resolve of the women, and children left at home. But for the Union troops, it was a song of betrayal and evil. During World War II, the idea of a protest song in the United States would have been abhorrent and heard only in the fringes of places, and quite frankly, rightly so. The music of war is simply the music that the war inspires in people and in the society living through the war. But there is a music of war not mentioned here. The music that our producer Doug, a US Army veteran himself, wanted me to mention here, and it may be the most important. The music I'm talking about now is the music not born of war at all, that kept the soldiers tethered to home, and gave them a reason to make it home again. It's the music they grew up with, the music that allowed someone buried in sandflies to escape into a perfect home in perfect weather, the necessary escape needed to literally survive that day. You see, the most important aspect of music is its ability to communicate emotions and transport the listener across time to memories associated with that music. Listen to this excerpt from We Gotta Get Out of This Place, the soundtrack of the Vietnam War, by Doug Bradley, Craig Warner, narrated by Sean Runette.
Con Tien was a miserable lump of mud and barbed wire, where there was little to do except sit inside the 2 sandbagged bunkers occupied by the battalion scouts and play cards and talk and just pass the time while waiting for the next barrage of incoming North Vietnamese artillery to arrive from the other side of the DMZ, which it did with nerve-wracking regularity. Of course, there was always the possibility of getting hit with a ground assault some night, but our bunkers were far enough inside the perimeter wire that we would have had plenty of time to say our prayers before some NVA soldier flipped a grenade through the door. Nighttime actually got to be sort of fun, and I soon came to look forward to it through the long daylight hours of ducking and cringing. Here's why. About the 4th or 5th night we were at Con Tien, several of the scouts in the other bunker came pouring into our bunker in a tangle of arms and legs and laughter. "Get on the bullshit band," Muggerty shouted, all excited. "They got tunes." Wally got out the 10-foot-long whip antenna, plugged it in, and stuck it out of the bunker. He fiddled with the radio. "Baby, baby, where did our love go?" Diana Ross and the Supremes were singing to us right through the radio's handset speaker, clearly audible in spite of the static. "Hot damn," shouted Morgan. "What'd I tell you?" said Mogerty. "Run next door and get Kenny and them, Raleigh," said Wally. "Let's have a party." The song ended, and a voice came over the box. "Diana Ross and the Supremes," said the voice. "Ain't they wonderful? Eat the apple and fuck the core, that's what I always say. And who am I? Why, I'm Dancing Jack, your Armed Forces Bullshit Network DJ, coming to you from somewhere deep in the heart of the country. Do I have any more requests out there, you jive motherfuckers? You got dancing in the streets?" Another voice broke in. "All right, Martha and the Vandellas," said Dancing Jack. "An excellent choice." The bunker got very crowded when several more scouts piled in from next door, but we all squeezed in together and pulled up our knees and made room, because we only had the one PRC-10 assigned to the scouts. We smoked cigarettes and laughed and listened, and sometimes we got real quiet, like when the Beatles were singing yesterday. Love was such an easy game to play. Now it seems as though it's gone away. And sometimes we all shouted along at the tops of our lungs, "Give me a ticket for an airplane." For a while then, we had it pretty fine. Daytime was no fun, but we spent our nights getting stoned and listening to Dancing Jack hour after hour after hour. When Otis Redding sat on the dock of the bay, I could really see the tide rolling away.
Yeah, this time we can answer the actual question that was asked for the first time in MC's channel history. Okay, so, number 1. The music of war is the music inspired by the war, written by the artists living through the war, and reflects the society around them, sometimes diverse in opinion and sometimes more straightforward. Number 2. The music of war is written for the people at home, and for the warrior over there. Like all art, it's written from the perspective of the artist, but most importantly, who it gets written for depends as much on the war itself as the people writing it. We learned that not all wars are the same. Number 3, the most important music during the actual war itself is the music you're listening to right now, the music you're creating memories with today, tonight, and even during the holidays for the next few weeks, because the hidden secret power of music is its ability to connect us to things that matter the most. The people and places we love, the memories that can give us a reason to go on when everything else around us is screaming the opposite. So maybe you'll listen to your favorite songs with new ears today. Or maybe the Christmas carol in the background of dinner can be heard with a different perspective this year. Either way, my name's Julia. Thanks for watching this video, guys. A special shout out to all of our troops who are making sure that we have a safe and wonderful holiday season. I'll see you in the next video and in the new year. Bye!